So our first community question, people, and this is actually one that's been repeated, like people really want more deck slots, a minimum of 2 deck slots by heroes, one for PvP and one for PvE. Is that something you guys plan on adding in the game in the future?
Not something we can speak to whether or not it's in our plans or not, but we've certainly heard that feedback from the rest of the community before. And yeah, we don't have any specific plans to address it right now at the moment, but it is a great idea. And it's something that I think a lot of people on the team are passionate about, but we just don't have any plans that we're talking about at the moment for it.
Okay. Does your team have plans to update the guild finder to put active guilds in front of new players instead of inactive guilds held by inactive players?
Similar to what Jeremy said about the decks for leaders, like we hear the feedback. I think we agree that would be a great quality of life improvement, but we can't say whether or not that's coming at a specific date in the future.
When will people be able to play against their friends?
Play against their friends, not with them. Well, we just gave everybody the ability to play with their friends.
I think people want to test decks against their. I think the concept is that people, because it's a multiple question again, they want to play PvP with their friends to test decks before they go into certain in other environments.
I think with any feature-based question, you're kind of going to get the same answer from us. Like, that sounds like a really fun idea, but we're not really prepared to talk about what we're releasing in the future for the game, unfortunately.
This user wants to know if you guys are planning to do some type of achievement system that allows you to play old content in different ways. Let's use minis to get achievements.
So similar answer, I will add that we recently added events, and events are a really fun way to revisit maps you may have already completed in campaign or maybe even heroic. Events often will take a quest or even just like a surge modifier, and they'll ask you to do something, an additional challenge on top of that. And so that's not a direct answer, but I do think that we'll continue thinking about ways to make that content, replayable and more fun for people.
This user says, any plans for improving efficiency of the app? Battery drain, and device overheat is brutal with this game.
Yeah, so I can answer that one very directly. Yes, 100%. We are always working on the performance of the game. That is something that we're acutely attuned to on the development team, especially from an engineering point of view. They are always trying to make maps load faster, bring down heat on the devices, make sure your interactions with the app are as quick and as snappy as possible. That is something we definitely always have an eye on with every release. And I think players will see incremental positive changes with each new release that we have coming out, because we have such a strong eye on performance for the game. It's something that's very important to us.
Do you plan on fixing the optimization for Pixel phones? This user is having a hard time loading into games on his Pixel 8, up to 2 minutes, he says.
Yeah, we're always, all devices, we're always looking to optimize and improve. I have a Pixel personally, and I play the game on it, so that's something that, like, if we see a bug or something on it, I'll report it to the team. But we're always working on improving across the entire range of devices. There's a lot of devices out there. That's one of the benefits of working on a mobile game is, almost anyone who has a mobile phone can access the game. So we're always thinking about it. The short answer is yes. We can't say like, oh, specifically this one thing on this one device is going to get fixed on this exact date. But in general, we're always listening, and we always want to improve it across all the devices.
Does your team plan to add a notification system when searching for a partner for sieges and raids?
Same answer. We can't comment on any future features, unfortunately, but that does sound like a really cool idea.
Does your team have any plans to add a volume slider into the game?
You want to take that one, Brennan?
Yeah, I mean, same answer basically, but I think you're referring to like a volume slider, like within settings that says like music volume, gameplay volume.
Yeah, I would assume so. That's what they're asking. Yeah, I would assume.
Yeah, same. That sounds like a lovely quality of life add that we definitely heard the request for before, and I'm sure people internally have suggested too. So, yeah, can't say anything yet, but
I have a gameplay question now, which is good.
Okay, go for it.
A lot of players are reporting having a surplus of rare cores, and I find myself that my progress is being limited by the lack of epic cores. Are there any plans to add a core conversion feature so excess rare cores aren't useless?
Want to grab that one, Brendan?
Yeah, sure. That's a really neat idea. Something where, I mean, same answer. Like we can't say yes or no. But something that we've looked at a lot in general is just like how the economy is functioning in Rumble. And we listen to a lot of feedback about that, and we all play it as well. And we'll talk internally, about what do we need more of, what do we need less of. And I think something like a core conversion or something to do with those cores sounds like a really, really nice addition, but we can't can't say that we have any plans necessarily.
What your team feels the role are for some of the bad minis are supposed to fill? Like, why would you play Spiderlings, Warsun Grunts, or Null Brute?
I can grab this one if you like, Jeremy.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so like our design philosophy is that every mini should have a place. There's, like I was saying earlier, there's always emergent strategies that continuously happen when we give players new tools, and that's one of my favorite parts about working on this game. I think depending on your strategy and your army and what you're using and what the meta in PvP is, I think there's always going to be something that's fun and viable that wasn't necessarily or didn't feel as fun or viable, the previous week based on the modifiers and the enchants and all that stuff. Our goal is always to look at what's available to the players and look at what's being used and offer new tools and new strategies to change that up. And like, for example, that's where Cenarion sort of came from. There's all these families out there, all these minis that we could pull from that we want to add to the game. But at any moment in time, we're thinking, what's good for the game right now? What does the player base need? What tools could we give them that could sort of add or shake up the meta here? And we realized that we didn't have as much like sustain and defensive kind of play style oriented minis and families. So Cenarion is a really good place for that. They have a lot of healing, a lot of resist, a lot of sustain, a lot of utility. And we thought that was a really good opportunity there. So for players who are not finding value in certain minis, I would challenge them to completely change it up, try a different leader, try a different deck, and see where those minis can go. I won't give recommendations for every specific mini, but for example, you mentioned Spiderlings, and like internally on the team, we use spiders all the time. We have a lot of people on the team who just love poison decks, and they just stack as much poison as they can, and they'll even use like the Quillbore talent in there, and they'll just drop a Quillbore just to keep the poison stacks going. And so I think there's value in every mini. It just depends on what you're using and where. But I would challenge them to try and make it work, because I think that's a really fun way to have a good time, to shake up what you're doing and see if you can find a different way.
Yeah, the broad range of play styles I think is like the number one kind of response to that for me, is that there's so many different ways to play a Rumble, either via PvP or raids or sieges or Arclight surges or campaign missions, and every mini has value in one of those game modes at some point. And so it's just about mixing up your army and trying something new.
And let's just get this one out of the way now. Any plans for PC release?
No plans that we can talk about right now, unfortunately. But we've certainly heard that from the community, and we certainly think it's a good idea, but we have nothing to announce at the moment.
Does your team have any plans to implement an arena or survival mode where every mini is the same level as you, and you pick for different pairs and sets?
Yeah, another fun idea. We're always thinking of new ways to shake things up. We have events, and events are like a great area to add new, fun, exciting things, kind of like what you said, to the game. So we're certainly open to it. We're always listening. That sounds like a ton of fun, but we can't say if we have any plans or not.
Do you have plans for the people out there that don't like to siege or raid but enjoy the campaign or other modes in the game?
Sorry, what was the beginning of that? Do we have plans for
that?
Do
you have plans for more content for people who are not actively raiding or sieging?
We definitely have plans for more content for the game. As to specifically where that content lies, we can't really talk about. I can say that we have a lot of fun stuff lined up, and it's like it's so fun to know that we've got it lined up, but unfortunately can't talk about it right now. But there are a lot of really cool things, but we don't have any specifics about future content other than Cenarion family that's dropping very, very soon.
Yeah, I agree with Jeremy. It's really hard to hear these questions and not want to share more. We're always thinking about the game, and we're obviously stuff is actively, going on after this, call ends. I'm going to go back to working on something that I can't tell you about. But we want all areas of the game to be fun and to be alive for players. And so if there's players who don't enjoy a specific area of the game, they can rest assured that other areas of the game will continue to also be updated and maintained. Something we can tell you about today is, like, for example, if someone really loves the campaign, we're adding 5 new campaign missions in Moonglade. It's going to be a new zone. There's going to be 5 new missions there. They're tons of fun. Some of them reference some of those new Cenarion minis I told you about. Some are completely different. And I won't say too much about them, but they're going to be really fun. They're going to have heroic versions as well. And so that'll be another way for players to stay engaged with the campaign, for example. And they can expect for us to continue to come out with content in all areas of the game.
which also means new Arclight Surge modifiers within that zone and all sorts of really fun content within Moonglade. We're super excited about that set of maps. It looks really, really fun. I think I have a personal favorite in Brightwing's map just because, I don't know, Faerie Dragon in general is just such a cool unit to me. And I just like how many, like, we did this whole, I don't want to ruin it. It's very cool. It's a very cool map that I think people will enjoy playing.
Does your team plan to implement duos and other content forms, quest PvP dungeons?
That's another interesting request that we've gotten a lot. I think we definitely see the value in that, but we have no plans to talk about anything like that today, unfortunately.
This person wants to know the design decision behind why you do not allow single-player raids.
I can talk about that a little bit. Sieges and raids kind of harken back to raids in World of Warcraft, and something that was really cool about raids in World of Warcraft was that it was a community effort. And you had to get a large group of people together at a specific time, and you had to discuss strategy, and you'd go and take down these massive, like seemingly impossible to defeat foes, and then you could celebrate your victory together and get these crazy rewards. And for some of them, they would like do this like whole server-wide message, and like it would change like some stuff that happened in the capital cities. Like it was so cool. And something we're always thinking about with Rumble is how do we take these different experiences, these different ideas, whether they're from World of Warcraft or not, and bring them to the mobile audience and bring them to our mobile players and make them fun. And when we were looking at sieges and raids, we thought, what is a core element of raids that we really don't want to miss out on, and that was the sense of cooperation. And so we didn't think that having 40 people on a single mobile level would be fun for those 40 people. So we brought it down to 2. We thought that was a really fun co-op experience. We think that the synergy there with all these multitudes of combinations we've talked about before, these different minis and talents, you now add a second person who's bringing a second army. And there's lots to discuss. There's lots of strategy there, and we felt like that was just a really fun opportunity, a really fun experiment. So that's why we went with co-op being 2 people for those.
And specifically why sieges are kind of like a more like slightly more accessible version of raiding, because you get kind of like a taste of raid mechanics in sieges already. So I think that's a really good kind of like introduction to it. And I also remember the first time that we played a co-op map as a development team, and just like I could not get the smile off my face for a long time. It was even a very early iteration of co-op within the game, but it was so much fun to share a deploy zone with another person playing the game, and like it was no longer completely my fault if I lost. I could share that with my fellow teammate, but we had so much fun playing it. We wanted to make sure that that we did right by it by the time we launched it in Warcraft Rumble, and we're really very, very happy with the results.
My last question is, people are really clamoring. They want Arthas, they want Gul'dan, they want Illidan. Any plans to implement those iconic characters into Rumble?
We want all of those things too. I mean, at the top of this list, we are Warcraft fans first and foremost. We love the IP and all those kind of epic characters. While we cannot say what specific characters we will be releasing in the future, those are some excellent ideas. And we will certainly take them into consideration for future minis for Warcraft Rumble.